So, welcome, lovely souls. I wanted to really get into what is being shown for me in terms of sovereignty and the distortions that sit alongside that, especially as I'm recording this, we're in September in 2025. The flags that are being flown, the St. George's flag for one reason, and the Palestinian flag for another. And what is really interesting, following the last meditation, week 5, I believe that is, where it showed me the reconnection to the Knights of Templar, to the Knights, and what I saw was the St. George's cross, the mantle on the actual knight itself, with Yeshua holding this sword of life, the sword of forgiveness. What came through from it was hugely emotional for me. It showed how the divine masculine was protectors of the feminine through of the earth, of the womb, of the grail, in fact, dragon energy was there, which I always recognize may seem a bit funny, but I could feel it, how these knights and dragons were working together in terms of protection of the feminine, of Sophia, of the rose lineage. And it was very emotional. It was huge, like being able to see that actually there was so much love, unconditional love coming from the divine masculine, which is ultimately what's been part of this container, where we are going through these wounds that we hold in our womb, where we have held this pain, this oppression, the betrayal that sits in that. We are releasing this because we sit heavily in our masculine energy to protect ourselves, which eventually, as we get older, gets exhausting. It's also keeping us in an energetics vibration of fear because we're fearing. So we're in that protection right down to our nervous system. And so we are here to shift all these layers, these distortions, these fears, these separation of what is Sophia from the divine light that she is. And for fear isn't true. The light is true, unconditional love is true. So this is really enabling us to leave and allow it to leave our systems through this white flame that is basically burning through our systems with a grace. It's just literally dissolving, turning everything to dust that is no longer serving us. And what I have had come really truly through me from this is that St. George's cross, and how interesting, as I record this in September 25, is that actually all we're seeing is the St. George's cross at the moment. The flag's being flown for reasons of people trying to claim sovereignty of being British or English against asylum seekers. And then we also have the Palestinian flag being flown for reasons of the genocide that is happening there. And it just really struck me how these are related. And the most interesting thing, which I will take you on a wee history lesson, as I have done so for myself, is that actually the St. George, he was a Greek, served for the Roman, as a Roman soldier, and was actually decapitated because he wouldn't crucify or basically be part of a genocide of 20,000 Christians. Okay, so he's born of a pagan father, a Christian mother, in a place that was Turkey before, or known as Turkey now. And he basically served Rome. And because he defied through consciousness not to persecute other Christians, he was killed himself by the emperor he was serving at the time. And he was martyred, as they call it. This is like a big, what they call martyring, which is quite an interesting concept, which we can also look into at another point. It's actually, he was then taken back to Lloyd, I think it's pronounced properly, is in Palestine, which is where his mother's hometown was, which is where there has been a tomb and a church placed above. So he was martyred. He was killed for standing in consciousness, okay, because he wasn't wanting to be part of a genocide. The irony as well here, and as I'm seeing with time isn't linear, and we're seeing this. I call it, I'm getting the sense of stitch of time. I'm seeing a tapestry. I'm seeing how there's a golden thread that has become the base of this, and other things have been woven into it. And it's created these distortions that we've all taken down. It's gone down from generations to now, what we see is the truth. And what we're seeing is that here's a man who was killed for standing in consciousness to not do it. And he never stepped foot in England. Yet several centuries later, he becomes known for what he did, and he gets taken back to England by, let me see, what have I written here? King Edward. And he basically repositioned him as the garter. So he basically had never stepped foot in Britain, never did anything for Britain, and yet his legacy was taken back to Britain, to England, and actually would then formed this Red Cross. And we've always seen St. George as the one who's slaying the dragon, okay? So there must be some mythology or something real behind this. But the thing is, he never came to Britain. So the attachment that we have, or people have, to the St. George's flag is kind of based upon nothing. Okay, this sovereignty that people stick to, and to either due to where they're born or their flags, it's all just distortion. And it's just showing how this time, these paradigms are coming together. It's like time is falling inside itself. It's trying to close down these old paradigms of fear, which I saw back in 23, that this return to innocence, that actually we are here to become conscious and start taking responsibility and closing down these old paradigms of thoughts and karma that have had us creating through the basis of fear. And we are here to remember through the Sophia light that we are, is that we are unconditional love. And to really become conscious of what we choose, is it love or is it fear? And it's just fascinating that I'm seeing these two flags, and it's come up in these meditations of working through the Sophia Christ, through the womb. And you just literally have the iron of it all. And then what I'm trying to get to here really is that, what is sovereignty? And what do we class as sovereign? We even have money classed as sovereign, okay? There's just so many layers of distortion that keeps us like on a smoke and mirrors, where we never really get to find our truth, or is trying to stop us from finding our truth. And it ultimately, all roads lead back to Rome, okay? See, Rome did that. Rome was behind the crucifixion, the genocide of Christians. They were also part of the killing of the Knights of Templar, which was what came up in the meditation. And so it'd be really interesting to see what's going on with the current times now, as we see what's going on, because also the Romans, they had a massive genocide of Jews. back in the Palestine area, and there's a whole renaming of geographics of that land. It's quite interesting. And what we have as well is these Palestinians, so where St. George is literally buried, is coming up now. And so this is all about the whole distortion, the untruths that are all woven into our life and society. And we've got people fighting against other people because they're claiming they have rights to the land. Nobody has rights to the land. Nobody owns a blade of grass. We do not have any entitlement to this earth. This is the false narrative that we have, through flags, through countries, through religion. There is no entitlement to this earth. There's no entitlement to the feminine, no entitlement to the woman and to the womb. And it feels like these are all the layers, the fraying of the tapestry that's coming undone, and to reveal the golden threads that are behind it all, that all this distortion and man-made stories have been woven to create a different truth, but it's not the truth, it's the illusion. And so it's just really interesting that how this is going to unfold or unravel, shall we say. And I just wanted to share that really. And it's just what the ultimate part is, what to be classed as consciousness and sovereignty. And sovereignty has nothing to do with where you're born or your race or anything like that. It's your sovereignty as your soul, as how you conduct yourself, whether it's of love, of unity, or is it fear and separation. So we're just on these weird paradigms, these different levels that are running alongside one another. And I guess this is now, which is what got shown to me in 23, is that we are literally at this crossroad, which we're in the apex of it, is it love or fear, where they've been running alongside one another, but now they're literally going to be starting to separate. You either go down in fear or you go up with love. This is what I'm seeing. I feel like we'll be starting to see the separation from fear, which is the illusion. Okay. And so this is about really calling us to look at our truths, to really wake up. And the light of truth is coming through, burning like a white light through the entire, our bodies, ourselves, and as a collective. So it's going to be really interesting how this is going to unfold. But the work that we need to do is do it for ourselves. And the other key thing is that I wanted to say was how religion has again distorted so much. It's distorted the story of Mary Magdalene, of how she was a whore and she was not equal to Yeshua, for what she was. She is the twin flame, and she continued on with powerful work as she went to France. You have the distortion that Mother Mary was a virgin. She wasn't a virgin. She was an innocent player in this whole thing, just so happened just to spring into a child. Now, the virgin aspect was that she had a virgin womb, that she bore Yeshua, she bore Christ from a pure Sophia womb. There was no generational trauma that was sitting within her womb that would have got carried down. She was literally pure Sophia womb DNA to enable Christ to come through. Okay. And so there's that distortion of how it has kept women small, that they weren't a key player, and that actually women are fundamental to all of this. It's also showed with Yeshua, how I just find it interesting that he is seen as this great figure in the church, yet the only portrayal really is of him hanging off a massive cross. I mean, if you think about it, And he's now classed as a martyr for, our save our souls. No, he didn't. It wasn't that at all. It's, if you look at seeing something on a cross, it's quite frightening, really. You've got to ask the question, what is that doing to your psyche, to your subconscious? And deep down on it with religion is that it talks about martyring. People that have stood in consciousness, in sovereignty, in truth, in love, have been killed. And they weren't standing up against the evil or destruction or fear. And they get killed. That's St. George, that's Yeshua. You've also got Thomas Becket, which my lovely friend Rachel Maria Bell is really into this, so she can always explore more for this. But there's many that have been martyred, whereas actually they were very courageous. They're extremely brave in their connection to themselves and to consciousness, and stood to the truth of what they stood for, basically. How they've been twisted as martyrs. So you've got martyrs, you've got victims, or those that stand up to the system, victims, martyrs, women, helpless. You've got to start asking the questions. What is the subconscious? What is trying to psychologically be controlled here? And when you look at a man on a cross, that isn't celebration. That's actually telling you, if you stand up to this, this is where you'll be. So you have to start looking and wake up to really start seeing things for what they are, and the distortions and the untruths that have kept us in this loop of distortion and disempowerment. And when we want to find our sovereignty, our true sovereignty, and that's not from where we're born and fighting against other people, it's about your consciousness, your divinity, and recognizing that we are all one. And we have got a lot to do as humanity to get there, especially when the forces wish to keep us small, they wish to keep us suppressed, they wish to keep us angry against each other. So we always stay in that low vibration of fear and separation, because when we do, we'll never get out if we're staying in that loop, that karmic loop. And yet you can make that conscious choice to step out of it, to get out of that woven thread, that matrix that's been created through fear. And so, yes, it can be courageous, it can be frightening when you start to step out, but then it's also extremely enlightening when you start to see things for what they are. And it doesn't mean that you go back into fear of, like, I feel helpless, I feel hopeless, and that there's this massive energy that's I'm having to fight against, because that's still energy of fight. That still keeps us in fear. So this is more about conscious awareness, and then how we choose to resonate at, what we choose with our thoughts as they come up. Are they love, joy, or peace, or are they fear? Let's move through those. How do I act upon my thoughts and my emotions? And know that you're not your thoughts. Often our thoughts will come up, and then we'll have a judgment of that thought and think, God, I'm a really bad person to think such things. What you've got to realize is that thought isn't you. You can choose to be who you are. You can don't allow your thoughts to define who you are. If you start creating more conscious patterns of breaking and go, oh, that's curious, that's interesting, but I choose not to be like that. Where's that coming from? Let me move that through me, because I choose love, joy, and peace. It's very, very subtle. But the more you create stillness and break those patterns, you can start to see where the distortions are, where the untruths are. And it's pretty enlightening when you can go, wow, I don't choose that thought. I'm not going to choose that negativity. I'm going to choose this. All of a sudden you just shift. You're shifting a timeline. You're shifting paradigms. every time you do this, and yes, you may drop back into fear, but as soon as you become conscious to it, you go back into where you want to be and start clearing and cleansing. And I feel like we're going through a huge, huge debris of fire. So I feel there's going to be a massive energetic shift of karma, just literally burning through it all. We've got the solar eclipses, the lunar eclipses coming up, where this is massive, where it's always coming in with seeking balance and unity, the feminine and the masculine, the moon and the sun, heaven and earth. I feel like this is what's hugely going to come in, and anything that just blocks heaven and earth from being as one, there's this massive white flame that's going to come through. And it's also showed me, when we talk about with work, you've done this work before, this violet flame, it talks about releasing karma. When it showed me the other day that the helix of the DNA, and you have the Sophia white light is the axis, it's the spine that's going through, so from up and above, okay? And with that, because everything needs that power of 3 to start to be the foundation. So like every atom, you need electron, neuron, and proton, okay? We need the 3. The Sophia is that white light that's holding these other two together. And Earth is coming up with the red flame, the red fire that's coming up. And then heaven is coming down with a blue flame, which I see Yeshua is carrying that, which is the light of forgiveness. And if you bring those two together, the red and the blue, which is fire and ice. I see the two coming through as that as well. The ice from the heavens, the fire, the heat from the earth. We get purple. You bring white light into purple and you have violet. So these energies are coming. And the Sophia light holds this, enables this to happen, to let all karma be released. And I see it like a massive fire just going to sweep through and burn superficial, the surface areas of all that is old. It's just distorted. It's just like the dead wood will be just burnt, cleared, and swept through. So it's going to be very interesting next 18 months, I would say, but especially the rest of this year. And the work that we can play with this is doing this individually for ourselves and equally setting the intention for the highest good for all. So I just wanted to share that with you. And the key points are is these timelines, these paradigms that we're seeing, that whereas St. George's was killed in 303 AD, and now we've got the Palestine and the St. George's flag happening again now, and how St. George seems to be weaving Britain or England and Palestine and everything else that's going on, and how Rome is involved in a lot of this as well. So they say all roads lead back to Rome. Well, maybe that's quite true. So, and then ultimately to break all of this, to break ourselves free, to claim back our sovereignty, is to come conscious. Are we love or are we fear? And then take responsibility of all the times that we haven't acted in love through all timelines. And then we swoop in this violet flame of light that just literally just cuts it all down to allow the rebirth, to allow the regrowth, the reborn to happen. So thank you for listening. And if this is resonating with you and you're female, I have the Daughters of the Golden Rose, which I'm still in process of recording, but who knows when you'll get to listen to this and when this will drop into your awareness. And that's a container. And currently it will be about 13 meditations, visualizations, activations to ultimately heal, to heal the wound, to activate the Sophia light within us, within our hearts, within our wombs, to return back to our wholeness and to our coherence, to allow our menstrual health and our DNA and generational trauma, all that we are carrying back to the blueprint of who we truly are, which is clearing us from all the distortions. And I'm feeling that this container is literally just showing all these distortions that we're holding in our system, okay, through our blood and through our bones, through our mitochondria, through our DNA. And each meditation is channeled, okay? I do not set an agenda for any of these meditations. I am purely in trust, receiving these meditations as to what we need to do. And so if this is resonating with you, you can go to the infinityhealthhub.com and just look up Daughters of the Golden Rose and get more information from there. And if you do decide to take that step and investment in yourself, I celebrate you. Oh, wow, I'm getting emotional because it just feels like each person that steps in and does this work makes a fundamental shift. And you don't necessarily realize the impact that you on your own will have. But each time you're doing that, you're making a shift, you're making a change. You're creating something different and alternative. So yes, lots of love, and thank you for listening. Take care.